And we are on. Jason, welcome to Real Talk Underground, man. How you doing today?
I'm doing well, Robbie. How are you?
I'm better now. Was having some crazy technical difficulties earlier, but I'm doing much better now, man. This is a real treat for me because I literally grew up listening to your albums with Audio Karate when I was in middle school. And what's even cooler is that you and I are from basically the same neighborhood. I spent 6 years of my life in Rosemead, San Gabriel, California, where your band's from. And this was like in the early 2000s, 2001, '02. So this interview is particularly visceral. It's very visceral to me, man. And it's really awesome to have you on.
Thank you so much, man. Yeah, it's we've had the unique opportunity to sort of put Rosemead on the map in some regards. I mean,
Hmm.
hell, it's the opening track on our first record,
Right.
and it's a unique place to San Gabriel Valley because it's not L.A. and it's not
Hmm.
Orange County and
Oh,
it's not
God.
the Inland Empire. It's such a melting pot. I feel like with such an emphasis on diversity, you want to talk
Hmm.
real diversity, go to San Gabriel Valley, right?
That's right. Absolutely. I mean, it's so normal as a kid growing up to have Mexican friends, Vietnamese friends, Chinese, everything, all walks of life is in that one little city, in that one valley, the SGV as it's known. And it's just like you said, the diversity is amazing there. And honestly, I'm actually glad that I got that experience growing up because when you're in a homogenous place where it's just one type of thing, you get one type of experience, right? But when you have so many different backgrounds in one place, I don't know. I just think it expands your mind at a young age, and it's important.
I think it definitely permeates in our music, and it's sort of that intangible. That what is it that makes this different than other punk bands?
Hmm.
I think it's that.
Sweet, dude. Well said, Jason. So let's jump into this, man. You're the lead guitarist for Audio Karate. It's fast paced, well produced, very catchy pop punk meets emo with a hint of indie. It's as if MXPX got into a car wreck with The Strokes and Blink 182, and you pepper in some no effects and you got Audio Karate.
I like the MXPX and the Strokes thing, man. I'm gonna use that. I got to do the Mike Herrera podcast,
Oh,
and
nice.
I'm gonna shoot him an email and be like, "Hey, dude, do you hear this? Strokes and you guys in a car crash."
Totally. I mean, that's what I hear, and especially in your guitar playing and in Arturo's vocals, because he has kind of like that Julian Casablancas punk rock vibe going on. So that's just what I hear every time I listen to a band. I think about, I mean, I like to hear their influences as I'm listening to them, and that's what I heard.
I think you're on. We like MXPX, but I don't think anyone owns an MXPX record. Certainly
Mm,
not when we were writing. But
hmm.
the Strokes, yeah, Art was listening to a ton of Strokes. Or I think in the studio we were even telling him like, "Hey, bro, can you cool out on this?" He's like, "Nah, shit's cool." Like, all right, whatever. And it works. So
It does. It does. It works quite well for you guys, honestly, and it's really what breeds new sounds when you kind of pepper in hints of a lot of everything, right? I mean, as a
no,
musician, it's nice to be diverse. So I think you guys did that
absolutely.
awesome. So tell me about the origins of the band, Jason. How was life growing up in Rosemead? How did the music come to be such a powerful influence in your life?
Ah, God. Well, it was either play music or join a gang, right?
Yeah. I mean, you're not
I
lying.
mean,
You're not lying.
no, I'm not. I'm not lying. And granted, we didn't come from this like super gnarly place, but I'd say right around junior high school, you had your buddies that you skateboarded with or you played little league with,
Hmm.
and one day they ditched little league practice, and then the next time you saw them, they're like, "Oh, hey, I got jumped into Lomas or V&E or something," right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, he would show up with a shaved head because I mean, I grew up in Pico Rivera, which is basically down the
yeah,
street from Rosemead. And you'd be at school one day with your friend, right? Your best bud, and then you don't hear about him for weeks. He does not come into school. He comes back to school weeks later with a shaved head, a Pendleton on, with his high
and he's from
socks, you know,
yeah, and he's claiming Pico
Pico
Viejo
Viejo,
and
or fucking what is it?
yeah, any number of
Whatever,
gangs, right?
yeah, exactly. So, you
But
know,
in to surmise it, Gabriel and Justo were childhood friends since kindergarten. Gabriel's my first cousin,
hmm.
and we all started playing together in earnest at probably the age of 13 or 14. And some of the songs that would end up on our first record, Space Camp, we
Hmm.
wrote those, God, when we were like 14, 15 years old,
Yeah.
and
Wow.
tweaked them a little bit, but we wrote them that young, you know?
I can't believe that because, dude, I mean, to be so young and to be such prolific musicians is it just blows my mind, dude. I mean, because I was learning the guitar when I was listening to audio karate records, so that's how I would get better by listening to you guys because you guys just fucking shred on these records. So I'm just like, wow. I mean, to be that young and to be that prolific of a musician is amazing, dude. Seriously.
Thank you, man. No, it was, but really there were no other alternatives, and none of us grew up very affluent. Um, so there was no summer camp or none of that. It was, hey, skateboard, and then we'll hang out in the garage and just make a racket till someone calls the cops, and then we'll go skateboard some more or whatever. Very, very suburban kind of existence.
Yes, yes. And around that era, I mean, around that time, I mean, you guys started in what, 96, I think it was?
96. So we were pre-internet in that regard.
Yeah.
And even as the band started taking off, the internet was something you did, but
Hmm.
it was a thing you did like for half an hour at a time a day, and then you
Yeah.
went about your normal life. I couldn't imagine being a teenage kid and starting a band now and wondering, oh, okay, are we doing all these social media outlets? Are we taking care of?
Hmm.
How about you just learn to write songs and have fun playing?
Yeah, totally, totally. And kind of piggybacking off of like the whole rose meat subject, I mean, as I mentioned, I spent a lot of time there when I was younger, and there was so much to do for a youngster. Skateboarding was a huge one, and punk rock shows on the weekends was I mean when you guys released your first record, Rosemead was there was literally a gig every weekend in Rosemead, a backyard gig or a house party, and I was too young to be at them, but I was at them anyways. I mean that's how it happens, right? And I mean the SGV was just such for me a gold mine for music. Like that little city had just was just exploding. I mean all of the 626 and 562 area code was just exploding with new bands and music, and these were all homegrown. You know what I mean? And you guys basically came out of that, which is why I think it's
Yes.
so awesome.
And you guys, so you went to Skate Junction and Whittier for shows.
Yeah, dude.
But it was cool, and I think the area had the benefit of, if you were a kid from Orange County, you could probably weasel onto a show at Chain Reaction,
Right,
and if you were from the IE, you could get into the Showcase or something.
right.
But San Gabriel Valley didn't really have a formal all ages venue, so it was living
True.
room shows and backyard
Right.
shows,
Hmm.
but they were set amongst the backdrop of, it was in someone's neighborhood, so gangsters would show up.
Right,
I had a
right. I
buddy that
remember
was
that.
stabbed. So
Right.
it was weird. It was a weird microcosm, and we were fortunate that as that scene was really thriving in the early 2000s,
Hmm.
that we then got
Hmm.
to start touring the U.S. and got to start touring internationally. And I, I've been hit up by a lot of people, kind of like yourself, saying like, "Hey, you guys were doing it internationally, and we felt ownership. Like you came out of our scene and you came from our neighborhood, and that's
Totally.
really cool to have been able to carry
Totally.
that torch."
Now, you guys released your debut album Space Camp on Kung Fu Records back in 2002.
We
The
did.
the record itself is amazing. I mean, I love it. It's a classic for the pop punk early scene. And as I mentioned earlier, for as young as you guys were, creating such complex music still blows my mind to this day. You guys are seriously a talented bunch. Now, take me back if you can. What was going through your mind when you signed your first record deal? How did that come about? And what was the process like writing and recording this album?
So in looking at your podcast, I know a lot of what you talk about is the opportunity, right,
That's right.
and advancement. So
Absolutely.
there was a venue in Fullerton, California, that's no longer there. The Ataris were playing, and Art said, "Hey, let's go to an Atari show. One of the openers can get us in." I had never heard the Ataris.
Hmm.
We took a demo, and we're walking, and it's crowded, and Art bumps elbows with Chris Rowe, the singer of the Ataris, and
Hmm.
gives him a demo. Everyone's done that. Anyone that's ever gone to a show has hit up a band next to a band and be like, "Oh, hey, here's our demo." And not to sound like a dick, but more often than not, they're terrible, right?
I
So
mean,
we never
yeah,
expected. They are. There's a million bands out there, and we weren't great, but we weren't terrible.
sure.
So a month later, Art got a call from Joe Escalante, who owned Kung Fu Records and plays bass in the Vandals and does a million things. He called Art. Art was. We're all still living at home. We're kids. Like, hey, Chris
Yeah,
Rowe gave me your demo. I like the songs I hear. I'd like to hear some more.
right
Total dumb
on.
luck. The total seizing of opportunity, right?
I mean, just
And
and then first of all, good on I think it was
Chris,
Arturo for passing,
yeah,
and but yeah, but especially good on Chris for you know not being a dick and totally going fuck these Latino kids, man. What is this shit? You know what I mean? Like he totally said, you know what, I'm gonna give these guys a shot. Like that was very forward and direct for this youngster to give me his mixtape. So I'm gonna go ahead and plug it to the CEO of Kung Fu, which is Joe Escalante, and then there's your fucking opportunity, man.
and that was it. Yeah, just total luck. We demoed out some more songs, and Joe liked some of them. He didn't like the rest of them, but he's like, "Hey, write another 10 or 12 songs." So we ended up taking the demos we did for Kung Fu along with some demos we had, and we
Mhm.
pressed 2,000 copies. I think I found an ad in the back of Mean Street or Scratch, which were zines that came out of like Whittier and that area.
Mhm.
And when I got 1,000 CDs in my parents' living room, and I was like, holy shit, they're not CDRs, they have silver backs and they're shrink wrapped, like we made an actual record. Then kind of forward thinking, jumped on the message boards for the Ataris and a couple different bands at the time and said, hey, I will mail anyone that wants to listen to the CD a copy. Send me $1 to this address and I'll send you a copy. And we moved that between that and
Nice,
playing shows, we moved 2,000 copies, which is decent.
dude.
Yeah. So
I mean, youngsters with such a work ethic and such a business mentality, like I don't know. Sometimes I feel like you know how can I put it? Like you guys were just like almost like possessed by the devil of greatness to just fucking somehow move these units and just fucking jump on these opportunities. Like I don't know. I just want to understand that personally because I think to myself, okay, we're from the same hood. I'm putting myself in their shoes. You know, a lot of bands where I grew up just fucked around,
yeah,
and the ones that did want to take it all the way, they didn't because they either lost hope, maybe they gave up on their sound, whatever. I mean, any number of factors. Maybe they just decided to go get a job or go to college. You name it, man. I've seen it all, and I saw it
right.
all in San Gabriel, where Rosebean, what we're talking about. So the fact that you guys said, we're going to do this thing. I love that. Like that. That's what I want to see more of. From the places that we're from, and you guys really
It,
set the stage for that.
man, you can do it. You don't need to be connected. Mommy and daddy don't need to be entertainment attorneys or anything like that. You could be very working class or downright poor. Honestly, the hustle is probably a little more important than the talent in some regards. There are plenty
Sure,
of talented people that no one
absolutely.
wants to work with, or they're waiting for someone to come to them,
That's
and
a good
that's
point.
never going to happen.
Right.
Um, so we took most of the songs that we had written, like I said, when we were probably 14, 15, and we wrote a couple of the later ones, the Nintendo 89,
Mhm.
Drama Club Romance. Some of those songs are maybe a little more developed. I think you could hear
Mhm.
on Space Camp the older songs versus the newer songs. And we
Mhm.
went to record with Trevor Keith from Face to Face
Fuck
and
yeah.
Chad. Yeah, and
Love
Chad
face to
Blimman
face.
engineered it. He did the Get Up Kids Something to Write Home About. The audio on those two records is very similar. Their record is a lot better, obviously. But we went to West Beach Recorders, where Offspring recorded Smash, and it was owned by Bad Religion. Yeah, so we get thrusted from playing backyards to now we're recording at the studio owned by Bad Religion with fucking Face to Face,
And that was a pretty
and
quick motion. Yeah?
that was huge, dude. That was overnight. That was within in less than a summer. that happened.
So,
And
what was going through your mind, though, Jason? That's what I want to know. I want to put myself in your shoes. I want the listeners to understand the process, which this was
don't
happening.
I'll tell you right now, it's don't fuck this up. That's what I was thinking. Like,
Good.
hey, we may never get to make a second record, but we're here now. Someone threw down, $20,000 for us to do this. Um, let's fucking make this happen and let's do it. And in some regards, we were ready. In
Hmm.
other regards, we weren't. We knew nothing about making a real record. Everything
Hmm.
else we had made was,
You were raw
you know,
talent. You were just raw
we
talent.
were raw. Yeah. Hey, we can play our songs, but we don't know how to make a record. We've never
Right.
been in a real studio.
Yeah.
And I think some of that roughness is on the first record,
Uh-huh.
but I also feel like there's some charm where you could hear the urgency of, hey, these are young, hopeful guys who
Totally.
are there. There's a naivety I think that comes across in that record. Um, and then we hit the road, man. Vandals took us out on tour. We got to go to the UK. We got to go to Europe. I turned 21 in
Fuck.
Japan, playing on stage, playing a show in Tokyo, and
Fuck yes, dude.
completely surreal, man. Because to
Sí se
anyone in the
puede, man. Sí
audience,
se puede.
yeah, and totally, but we weren't prepared for that. We never thought we'd play anything more than the Santa Fe Springs fucking swap meet or something like that. And now,
All the cup.
yeah, and then we're playing 2,000 capacity venue shows in London.
Fucking A, man.
And had a video on MTV2, and we're doing it at a scale, and that happens very rapidly. And full disclosure, we were very slow to catch up. We didn't get management, we didn't get a formal booking agent, we didn't do any of those things for whatever reason. But I'm also glad in retrospect that we didn't, because I learned
Hmm.
how to do all that shit.
Right.
Someone had to do it, right?
Right. Right. So, can you remember your rig for that album? And if so, can you give a quick rundown for us guitar geeks? Because I would love to know it.
Yeah, so we were a punk band, and we were a real punk band
Yeah.
in that what I'll say is there were a lot of bands in that scene that they were fucking 16-year-old kids that had triple rectifiers and Les Pauls and $5,000 worth of equipment. That wasn't us, dude. I had an American. So at that time, I was playing an American Strat with a little 59 bridge. So it's a humbucker, but it's in a
Hmm.
single coil position. I had the
Hmm.
shittiest Carvin amp that I think I bought for like $100, and I was touring that. We did not have nice
What?
gear, but Trevor Keith has great gear. So I'm trying to think what I think we used, like a top hat. He had all kinds of boutique amps and stuff like that. But I recorded the
Hmm.
record using my Strat, and I think a high watt and a top hat. Uh, the record sounds cool. I love the guitar sound. It's a very different Space Camp. The guitar sounds different. Dude, I couldn't tell you, and I'm sorry. It's been like almost 20 years, but it wasn't our gear.
Yeah.
It was all face to face. It was all Trevor's
Well, good
gear.
on them, man. Good on them for, I mean, they took care of their artists. You know what I mean? They're gonna say, we're not gonna
Yeah,
let you guys play with swap meet shit, man. Here's
no,
some pro level shit. That's awesome. That's really
totally.
awesome.
Well, yeah, I
Um,
mean, he's got a job too. Someone's paying him to deliver a good record on time.
mhm,
That's his job, right?
mhm,
That's the
mhm,
job of a producer. And
mhm,
we learned that. There were things we wanted to do, and in retrospect, he's like, "Hey, I got to do this on schedule. I have to deliver a record to your boss in 2 weeks. So you
mhm.
guys may want to experiment and think you're the fucking Beatles. I got to get you guys recording fucking songs and get you out the door.
Right.
Time is money
Time is
when you're
money.
making records. When you're
That's right.
making a real record, time is money." I didn't fully understand that when I was a kid,
Right.
uh,
Sure. I mean, you were
and
a baby,
I thought
dude.
we were yeah, I thought we were making OK Computer or some shit. And he's like, "No, dude, this is a punk record. Get in there. Let's fucking track. Let's get to work."
Exactly.
And good on him for that.
Totally. No, totally. And I mean, good on the whole outfit, like the whole label. Like they believed in you guys. They invested money in you guys. I mean, you guys literally experienced the tail end of when record labels actually had influence and money for that matter. So tell me about that. Like, I mean, nobody really gets to experience that anymore. We're all doing this shit from our homes on Ableton and Pro Tools. You guys did this shit in a studio with proper fucking equipment, man. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so the record contract we signed was a 4 option deal. So that means Kung Fu could make 4 records, and we would have to produce 4 if they wanted to exercise their option. So the budget for the first record was $20,000. Uh, Second was 30. The third would be 40 to 50. And if Kung Fu exercised the fourth, it would have given us 100 grand to make that record, which is crazy. I don't know that anyone's really getting that. Certainly not in the punk world. I don't think people are making records for that much.
Hmm.
Um, you could go track it at a buddy's studio in his garage, and that's probably half of what you're listening to on Spotify, right?
Totally.
For $2,000 to $3,000 to get it mixed up and mastered, and that's
Hmm.
what you're getting.
Hmm.
Um, that's insane, dude. I hadn't had a job. I'm fresh out of high school.
Right.
Um,
I mean,
I
that's
don't know if our yeah, I don't know if our parents were making 40 grand a year, right?
right.
And we're gonna do that just to make a record and to get it done.
So exactly.
I always joke around and say if we did sell those kind of that number of records, we'd probably be dead. We would just imploded because it's stressful, man. You're away from home. You're young. Um, think about that age, that 18 to 22, and you're old enough to go to bars, and you're having some of your first real romantic relationships. That's a difficult time if you're just a normal dude who works at Starbucks, right?
Right.
But now throw that into you're touring, no one's watching you, you're drinking every day, you're flying around the world, people want to hang out, people want to party.
People know who
Um,
you are
People
internationally.
know who you are. Yeah,
So
like
that
it's
that that probably
weird,
fucked
right?
with your head a little bit. Yeah, I mean, being that young, were you on any kind of power trip at any time? Like, I'm hot shit. I'm fucking Jason Camacho. Orale.
Well, that's the benefit of being that's the benefit of coming from a Mexican family, right? You come home and everyone's like,
Muy
"Hey, you think
muy.
you're bad, huh? Hey, you think you're bad because you're in a band? Hey, you ain't shit, puto." Like that's I mean, it's all in love, but you get that
Right.
level of like, "Oh, don't think you're bad."
Right.
That's a
Right.
very Hispanic thing.
Uh-huh. But you
So no,
personally,
I
did
don't
you feel that?
I don't think so. You just get weird because
Cool,
you're
man.
gone all the time. You come home for 2 weeks,
Hmm.
tired. Everyone wants to see you, your family, and then you
Hmm.
realize like there's nothing for me to do here. I don't have a job. I don't go to school. I
Right.
just hang out at my mom's house. God, I
Yeah.
can't wait to get back on the road.
Exactly. Right.
Um, so that messes with you where you kind of feel like there's no home, and then you get a bit
Did,
anxious about the future.
no, I mean okay. So that's a perfect sort of segue into what I want to ask next. So it sounds like you got to a point somewhere between the two records where you thought, "Fuck, man." Was the rock star life kind of losing its appeal in some way? Like, was it getting a little bit scary for you? It sounds like the uncertainty, maybe.
The uncertainty got difficult because I think because we had tight knit families, and so you got to understand, Justo has 4 brothers. One of them's a doctor. Uh, the other owns a contracting business.
Hmm.
One's a high school guidance counselor. So these are successful guys, right?
Sure.
My brother was a police officer. He bought a home at 21.
Right.
So we came from families where like no one was a burnout drug addict,
Sure.
and then it started to call into question like we could see the writing on the wall of we're doing this, but we're not getting to that next level where we're probably never going to be No Effects or Blink 182. That writing was on the wall.
Hmm.
So you start to play head games of do I want to continue to sleep on couches doing something I love, and
Hmm.
how long is that sustainable? This is kind of hard on this is just hard on
Hmm.
relationships and on the body generally.
Hmm.
And do I go back to school and conform to a life that I'm more kind of familiar with and comfortable
Comfortable,
with?
safe, quote unquote.
Safe.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And we after Lady Melody, so that record is our favorite, and
Great. Great record.
it's we recorded that with Bill from Descendants, Bill Stevenson, and he owns the Blasting Room. He's recorded over 1,000 punk bands. Everyone you name, Alkaline Trio, uh, No Effects, Lagwagon, their own
Hmm.
records. So
Hmm.
he's been quoted as saying that's his favorite record.
Hmm. Wow.
So in terms of ratifying like your artistic merit, that's it. If Bill says this is his favorite record, I don't care what any reviewer
You
says.
got the fucking
That's the
stamp, dude. That's the
that's the
stamp.
stamp of approval, and that's enough. That justifies it for me.
Right on.
So I know for me, we had a hard time of like, hey, we're never going to be super huge.
I have a few questions here that I want to ask. I'm going to try to divvy them up as best I can. But first of
Yeah,
all, you mentioned that you guys felt like you didn't see yourselves reaching the status of, say, Blink 182 or one of these big pop punk acts. Now,
correct.
why is that? Was that because were you guys not making any money off the records? Was there not like a ton of like reception coming from the fans? Like, where did that uncertainty come from?
I think we thought it would happen faster.
Hmm.
And granted, we just talked about how fast it did happen.
Exactly.
But then you start seeing. So we came up with Rufio. Are you familiar with that band?
Absolutely. Come on,
Yeah,
man.
fucking fantastic band, right?
Totally.
Um, so we both put out our first records. They did 100,000, and they're doing national tours with Strung
Hmm.
Out, and then they're doing
Hmm.
headline tours. I think they took Fallout Boy, Brand New, and Taking Back Sunday out to support them. So that's how
Okay.
big they got quickly. For a point of reference, right? We didn't do that. They're doing Warp Tour main stage. We're doing Warp Tour side stage. They've got formal management. They've got world class booking agent. We're
Were
winging it and getting help from the label.
were they on a bigger? Did they sign a bigger deal than a bigger record label?
They jumped to Nitro Records, which was owned by Dexter from
Dexter Holland.
Offspring. So
Absolutely.
they put out Offspring, Vandals, AFI, bigger label, right?
Okay.
Um, we were doing Warp Tour. We were doing all the things everyone's doing, but the
Hmm.
scale just wasn't there.
Hmm.
And I don't know what to put the finger on. Probably because it becomes a very well oiled machine at that point with a
Hmm.
lot more moving parts, right?
Sure. Sure. Sure.
Formal management, other
Yeah.
people now are able to make money
Right.
off of you,
Right.
and they're
Right.
going to push you to larger audiences.
Right.
Those people weren't there. Kung Fu was down to let us just be artists,
Right. And
and they
take
would
creative
help where they
control.
could.
Hmm.
Yeah, but they weren't pushing us to like, hey, you guys need to go out and sell 1 million
I
records, or
see. I see.
we'll drop you, if
Right.
that
Right.
makes sense.
It does. It does.
Yeah, having some foresight, we were like, okay, alternative press has us, but we're on page 97, not page 20. We're not on the cover.
Hmm.
Um, so the writing was just on the wall that we would be a
Yeah.
working class punk band. We could
Right.
continue to do it, and we'd get bigger. More people would come to shows, but
Hmm.
we probably weren't going to be a headlining national touring act anytime soon.
Did you feel this way
And
during Space Camp, or was this after Lady Melody
this
was
was
kind of
after Lady Melody, where
okay?
we were of the opinion like this is the best we can do. Like we thought it was the fucking greatest shit ever. And granted, every artist does because they're so close to the product.
Right.
But
Right.
but we knew that I guess it's like a fighter, right?
Uh-huh.
A
Uh-huh.
fighter knows, like, hey, even if I fight my best fight, unless I get lucky, this dude's gonna fucking knock me out. Like, they're
Got
just a
you.
better fighter.
I
That we
got
could do
you.
no better.
Sure.
And after about a year or two of touring that, this was now coming into 05, 06.
Mm.
Um, we started figuring like, hey, maybe who still wanted a teaching credential? Like maybe we should regroup.
Mm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I built a studio, so we started
Mm-hmm.
recording the songs that ended up on Malo. But we talked to
Mm-hmm.
Kung Fu about, hey, can we maybe get out of our contract? And we thought, okay, well, we'll try to find a major label because everyone was
Mm-hmm.
signing to majors. Atari's did,
Mm-hmm.
Thursday, Thrice, everyone. So we thought maybe we could do that, and that kind of fizzled out. And then
Mm-hmm.
ultimately, we just kind of got spent. We're burned out,
Got you. Dude, when
and
you
just
guys
so we
played the fucking slide bar, I was like, I'm fucking there, but I didn't make it for whatever reason. But
ah.
yeah, I mean, I actually have never seen you guys live, so I'm still, that's still yet to be. But like I mentioned, I grew up with your records, love you guys as band. You guys being Latino just makes it that much more, you know, just more heartfelt, I guess. You know, everybody has records that are near and dear to their heart, but when I hear when fucking Nintendo '89 comes on, or Jesus is alive and well and living in Mexico, like it's like, dude, that's literally my shit. You know what I mean? That's me.
Thanks, man.
That's me right there.
People like country music because it speaks to them because they're country. You know, we make music for ethnic kids from the suburbs of Los Angeles, man.
That's beautiful. I love that you guys do that, and perhaps that was maybe kind of always the goal. You know what I'm saying? And maybe that's what, audio karate represents. You guys are like representation more than you are just, as you mentioned earlier, we don't want to sell out or whatever. Like you guys are actually true to what you're talking about. And I mean, it works, and you've inspired tons of people around the world, not just people in from your neighborhoods. So you're staying true to yourself, yet you're still inspiring. And I think that's beautiful.
I think that if we could do it, certainly anyone can, because there's no more unlikely place or more unlikely cast of characters. And we were, I mean, truly, now I feel like diversity is a buzzword. And I feel like if someone was going to market audio karate in 2021 versus 2002, it would be everything would be about how we are Latino and how we're Chicano.
Exactly. So let me ask. I must ask the proverbial question: did Being Latino have an impact in any capacity on your guys' upward mobility as musicians?
I don't think it hindered it. Um, but you could never know, right? Like if
Right.
those conversations were had, we weren't privy to them. I think locally and regionally it helped because if we played anywhere on the West Coast or in the Southwest, it was all
Mhm.
brown faces, brown and yellow
Yeah.
faces. Um, but at the end of the day, if you look at the cover of the magazines back then, the alternative press and all that, or the Warp Tour, who was
Right.
on the cover? And that's not to say they didn't warrant it, and that's not to say that there was a concerted conversation of, hey, we can't put these Mexican kids on the cover of alternative press. Like, no way. But I think the marketing was a little difficult. And there are places
Mhm.
in the United States. It's crazy to think, being from Pico Rivera, but we would go to towns where we would play shows, and it was very obvious like they'd never seen Mexicans playing punk rock kind of
Right.
emo music. Like you don't
Exactly.
get that. The Get Up Kids weren't Chicanos, right? um,
Right.
so I
Exactly.
don't feel it was ever a negative. We never felt any hostility, but there's
Hmm.
definitely
That's
such a
good.
like. I don't know what to do with this. I think Joe Escalante, being Latino, I think he signed us because he said like, "Hey, I got an opportunity to sign a Mexican punk band, and
Good.
they're good and they're Chicanos." I think that was a deciding
Right.
factor for him. I think all things equal, it's like these
Yeah.
two bands are good, but I could sign the Mexican band. I'm gonna sign the Mexican band. So I think it benefited us there. I think to do it again, we should have gone to Universal Latino and just camped outside and be like, "Hey, here we are. Like we could be the Mexican Blink 182, make it happen." Uh, but we
Sky's the limit,
didn't.
dude.
You know, but we didn't want to play that game, and maybe I'd be married to Talia right now or something. But what are you doing in Germany, man?
Good question. So I'll be perfectly frank because this podcast is about real talk. I fell in love with a German girl.
Nice. I've been to Germany,
Yes.
so I know how easily that could happen.
She's an amazing human being. She's an artist
That's awesome.
herself, and long story short, coming from the 562, it kind of got to a point where I was like, hmm, I kind of had my run here. I want to see what else is out there, and I just happened to fall in love with a German citizen, and here I am, brother, continuing my
That is
art.
awesome. I will definitely say, having put music and artistry on the shelf, I live in Oregon now. I never thought I'd live here.
That was one of my questions,
So
actually. Do you still live in Rosemead? But you just answered it.
I don't. So Justo does. Justo's the only one. Everyone else has moved out of the area, but I left the state. Um, I feel like during those tender years, the touring and the moving around made me pretty fearless about I could do anything and I can end up anywhere. And kudos to you for going to Germany and
Thank
doing
you.
it
Thank
because
you.
10 years from now, 50 years from now, you'll never regret the stuff you did. I don't regret anything I've ever done. You regret the stuff
You
that
didn't
you
do.
didn't do, and those
Wonderful.
opportunities are limited, man. Audio karate. Had we been afraid, oh, maybe now it's not the right time. Maybe now this isn't the right deal. That was that we were doing it real hardcore was a 4 year window, and 20 years later, I've done that, and my life has gone through so many changes.
Sure.
But you can miss those big opportunities that don't last forever, man. They don't, and you've got to seize them when they're there.
That's right. I usually ask my guests when I conclude an interview what their advice to an up and coming artist is, but I think you just answered it. But if you have something else you'd like to say, man, by all means, because this is really inspiring.
Be fearless, man. Um, fear of are you familiar with the concept of fear of failure, fear of success?
Well, yes, because I feel like I believe people can actually be afraid of success somehow.
For success is scary as all hell. So people don't try things for one of two reasons. They're either afraid, well, fuck, what if I fail and people are going to talk shit? And can I emotionally recover from failure? That's valid.
Right,
And then there's fear of success. Oh my God, what if we do get a record deal?
right.
What if this record takes off? Uh, I don't know what that looks like. What does my life become? And no, I'll just stay here in my corner where it's safe.
Hmm.
Fuck that. You got to be fearless, man, and that transcends art. That's every aspect of life. Don't be
Yes,
reckless, but
be fearless.
certainly have the foresight to be fearless and know when those opportunities are there that you've just got to jump on because they won't be there forever.
No, 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 you're absolutely right. In fact, fuck, you said it perfectly, Jason. Seriously, man. I mean, I have this rule. I never miss an opportunity to network. I never miss an opportunity to just go for something that is just kind of beckoning to me, man. And you put it beautifully. Fearless, being fearless is everything, especially in art. You know what I mean? Everything's a risk, but especially in art. So, that's beautifully said, man.
Thanks. Once or twice a day, I pull something decent out of my
You
ass.
should write a book. You know what I mean?
Well,
The life of Jason Camacho.
I'll
I
call it.
read it.
So you think you're bad?
And other things that your Mexican family tells you.
Yeah. And other
Oh.
ways your cousins talk shit at family reunions.
Man, it's been such an honor interviewing you, Jason. I think we should definitely do a part two at some point because I'd love to have you on again, man.
Super fun, Robbie. Please reach out anytime, brother. Safe travels, and thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being on, brother. Peace and love.
Take care, bro.